Ned Bacon and his CJ-3A. Hi there, I'm Rick Péwé from Gone Jeepin'. We're here today with a special friend of mine, Ned Bacon from Minden, Nevada.
Rick, good to see you.
You too. We've been actually wheeling together for about 30, 40 years, which makes us like 25, right?
Older than dirt.
Older than dirt, that's about it. But we got a special Jeep that Ned has resurrected with a variety of interesting parts, mainly a Mahindra Roxor.
Yes.
Tell us how you did it.
Well, I started with a 49 3A that is in dire straits.
Yeah.
It
needed help.
It had lost its engine and had been pruned for something else, and most of it was pretty rough. And then I had a 2018 Roxor that we raced for Mahindra in Mexico a couple of times, and it was the first one to go over the Rubicon, and did a bunch of other rock crawling adventures with it. Got their PR out of it, and then it was just sort of sitting there in the shop, and the Willys was sitting outside, and COVID came along, and I needed something to do, and so I married the two.
Since the Mahindra is pretty basically like an old flat fender Jeep, I mean, we're talking 5-lug axles.
I like to say that a Mahindra Roxor is everything you wanted in a Jeep in about 1970 and couldn't get. It's got the diesel engine, it's got power brakes, disc brakes, it's got Dana 44 in the front. It's got a 5-speed with overdrive.
Long, flat leaves.
Long, flat leaves, longer in the rear than a Willys ever had.
Yeah, a Dana 18-ish transfer case.
It's pretty much an 18 internally. It looks a little different from the outside.
So the biggest problem was, of course, it's longer than a 2A.
The wheelbase on a Mahindra is 96 inches.
Versus
80. 80 is the Willys. So
yeah.
I took 14 out. The way it lined up to get the rear axle to fit the body and where the firewall hit the back of the engine, it wound up being 81, which is close enough.
That's close enough.
Early CJ.
I think my Jeep's 79.
Yeah.
So,
well, they shrink. We're all shrinking with age.
Yeah, that's how it is. Well, let's go ahead and look at some of the under the hood, because that's one of the features. That diesel engine is so popular, economical. I mean,
I'm getting somewhere close to 30 miles a gallon. I've run all week here on one tank of fuel.
One tank of fuel. Yeah. How big is that thing?
And about 12 gallons.
Wow, that's just like a stock 2A.
Pretty much. Yeah. And it'll go down the road at 65 comfortably, drive like a regular car.
Well, your fifth gear is an overdrive, right?
Fifth gear's overdrive, fourth gear's about 4-1.
So you're not tacking out. What axle ratios?
I've put in 488s in it. It came with 373s.
Okay. Yeah.
The new ones you can get with 538s.
Wow, so there's still quite a selection.
Anything Dana 44 seems to fit. I put ARBs in it last summer for the Rubicon stuff and everything, and regular Dana 44 30 spline ARBs fit in it. Now the Mahindra comes with a 19 spline axle,
which is what they had in the 70s,
exactly.
60s.
So ARB, of course, doesn't make a 19 spline locker anymore, but so I upgraded it to 30 splines. Yukon Axle is making alloy shafts for these things, including a full float kit in the back, which I also did to it. Yeah. So it's got 30 spline alloys. And again, since I was going to that, I put CTMs in it as well.
Right. And it's a 44 front, so that's
it's
a 30
44
spline.
Front, exactly.
Yeah.
It starts
but it comes as a 19.
Comes as a 19, but a 30 drops right in it.
So let's take a look and see what you got.
Let's do it.
That's a genuine 3A windshield. Look at that.
Gotta love that. It used to have a Studebaker in it. And I understand it was an air
flathead 6. Wow, what a difference. So what size is this engine?
It's a 2.5.
And it's cast iron. It's not aluminum.
Cast iron head, iron block. I believe it was an international tractor engine in the 50s that the Indians got a hold of the technology and probably bought the rights and reworked it. They've turboed it. It's drive-by-wire. It's electronic fuel. And so it's quite modern in that respect. It has an ECU and drive-by-wire throttle. The way it's tuned right now, it's about 140 horsepower and about 200 foot-pounds of torque. And that's through the ECU. They're slightly detuned when they come over from the Indian version. But it's easy to reflash the ECU and get them going a little bit better.
That's a lot more than the stock 134 2.2 liter 4-cylinder.
Oh, yes.
And you also got the power brakes, hydraulic clutch, and power steering all packaged where it belongs.
Got the little international yellow caps.
Oh yeah, gotta have them. And your radiator spacing, everything looks really good.
Lots of room for radiator.
And power brakes.
Power brakes.
So did you go
hydraulic
swinging
swing
pedals?
pedal? Use the swing pedals.
Off of the Roxor?
Off the Mahindra.
Cool.
And but I had to graft the Willys pedals onto them.
Well, of course.
Make it look correct.
Yeah.
It also is drive-by-wire, and but I managed to get the old Willys pedal to operate the electronic throttle. So
So it looks right.
Looks correct under.
And it drives.
dash.
I saw you drive it, so it drives well.
Oh, it scoots. It weighs about 2,900 pounds total. It lost about 500 pounds over the Roxor.
Right, but a stock
And,
2 or 3A is about 2,600 pounds.
26 or so. So it's in there, but it's got a fully boxed frame. Of course, the Dana 44 and a big heavy diesel, and everything's cast iron. The head, the block, the bell housing, the tranny housing.
No aluminum.
18, no aluminum anywhere.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty Jeep-like.
It's kind of Jeep-like.
Let's go keep looking.
Classic.
But then when you look at it,
Down where it belongs.
where it belongs,
Proper.
and then check out the front. I mean, the front of a Jeep is its face. It tells you everything. And these eyeballs are real special. Tell us.
Those are special Marchal head. What are they? H4s.
Yeah.
I got them in about 1975. They've probably been on 10 different vehicles, and but they still work great. And they got replaceable bulbs, of course.
Yeah, and it's
Sort of
the
period
vintage
correct.
look.
They
Yeah.
just had to have that
Absolutely.
vintage look. The rest of the grill, it had these great holes drilled in it. I don't know why.
Those are pretty cool.
Of course, it's got the broken parking lights,
Which is
both
fine.
sides, which is proper.
But this,
This is an original Warren 8200, not an 8274, period correct.
which is why it's controlled by all the cables.
It's got all cable controls that go into the front.
And only power in.
Only power in, they do not power out. Got your clutch lever right here and your brake lever right here. Did
So-
go for a synthetic rope, although it's a vintage synthetic rope that's been through quite a few rock competitions.
And then, of course, a high lift.
Got to have a high lift on something like this.
Absolutely.
And it just fit there just right.
So when we were talking about the front axle,
Front axle's pretty neat on these things. This is one part you always wanted on a Jeep back in the day.
factory.
From
Yeah.
the factory, because it's an actual Dana 44 center housing. It's also got open knuckles,
Yep.
and of course it has disc brakes as well. But back in the day when we only had 25s to play with and maybe a 30, we always wanted a 44 under the front.
Right. They're so much stronger.
Here they are in the proper size.
Yeah. That's great. And it's also a regular open knuckle, not like the late model.
Correct. No,
Yeah,
it's
big
old
difference.
school. Open
It's old
knuckle,
school,
too.
so you
It's
have the locking
right
hubs.
out of the 70s.
Yeah.
Locking hubs. Everything bearing-wise interchanges with Willys part numbers.
Yeah, it's normal
Steering
stuff.
parts, everything.
Yeah. And you have disc brakes.
And you have disc brakes.
Factory. Okay. Steering looks like normal.
Steering looks fairly normal. It's got a great big army green steering
look at
box under here. It looks like it came out of a Mahindra tractor or something.
Probably did.
But, it works fine. It also has a lot of turns lock to lock, which feels like a Willys.
Yeah. Right. But it is a
Even with
recirculated
power.
ball.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Let's check out the inside.
Let's have a look.
Gonna love this. So thanks for leaving the patina. It's absolutely
The
perfect.
patina was the best part about this tub. I had to have that.
Yeah, I mean,
Total ratty
that's
flatty
what
look.
makes it.
Never
so-
would touch that.
And then you look at this, which looks new, but it's actually vintage.
Nope.
This is from the 70s.
That's all correct Warren winch controls.
Right.
Over the winch.
All right. So give us left to right real quick. The nail.
Okay. Well, the square nail just happens to hold the spring for the clutch. But
Okay.
we talked about the swing pedals, but
Right.
I grafted the Willys pads onto them.
So from looking outside, most people are going to
Just
think it's
at
stock
a
and
glance,
go.
it looks stock.
Yeah. So what you have here is your stock pedals that you've grafted onto your swinging pedals. They don't go through the floor anymore, but it looks like it. Same way with your throttle. There's the actual electronic throttle control hooked up to the pedal.
So on the gear shift, I used the T90 shaft grafted to the Mahindra gearbox, but it had this great old doorknob on it that was with the Willys body. Had to leave that. Also, I twin sticked the
Transfer case.
Mahindra transfer case. They're normally a single stick, but it had to have a twin stick.
And the steering.
Steering column, this is Mahindra. It's got a Jeep spline welded onto it so that the old steering wheel, which came with this Jeep.
Right.
By the way, its name is Pigpen. And it came with that name. It's been Pigpen for years and years by its previous owners.
Perfect.
It's still Pigpen. The only thing I had to do to the dash, which I hated to do, I had to cut a hole bigger here to run the Mahindra speedometer and gauge cluster because it has all the goodies in it, including a tack and that. But the ECU won't function without
Without
gauge.
that.
So I actually cut some of the sheet metal out of the Mahindra dash, so I didn't even have to cut holes for these modern square knobs and stuff. So that's, yeah, we don't want to look at that. That's a little wrong, but had to have it. But at least I took the paint off of it. And another little feature here, I did mention it has ARB air lockers in it nowadays. So we have them hidden under this funny little cover here. The actual compressor and everything is down in the smuggler's box. And there's also a fuel pump that transfers fuel from the original Willys tank to the Mahindra tank that is behind the rear axle. So I've got a total of 22 gallons of fuel that I can carry. And we also use the handbrake from the Mahindra hidden down in here, so it's got a parking brake as well. Okay,
Check this out.
Check that old beauty out. This was also on the Jeep where the vent used to be, so I keep the registration. Got to have the TP handy. So
Well, now we know where
that's
your
in there.
spare store is.
Now you know where that is. Also, you might take a look at the American Bosch electric windshield wiper motor, which of course doesn't work, but it was on there, so had to use that.
Let's look at the final tail end. You got quite a lot of stuff going on there. What's that?
Well, that's a pull pal, which is a winch anchor, which any vehicle I have that has a winch, I always have a pull pal as well. Just
There you
doesn't
go.
make sense to not. Single rear tail light.
That's all that was needed.
If it's never had a right-hand brake tail light, Willys originally just came with the left one. And this body is virgin enough to where it's never been cut and had another light added to it.
And tell us about those patches.
Well, it's got some great patches on this side that were with the Jeep. Somebody kept the body from splitting apart years ago with these little straps. So I just left those, of course, because they add to the patina.
Thanks. That
Well,
was awesome.
there you have it.
One of your best creations. All right, so
Well, thank
until next time, Rick Péwé and they can gone cheapin'.
Always good to see you, Rick.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Gone Jeepin'.